is English 101, week 13, part 7. All right, this is going pretty smoothly. So now she's going to jump into some other things now. So let's see what she has to say about this. So she's talking about her night at the club, doing drugs with this guy and listening to music. Was that joy? Probably not. I mean, maybe. But it mimicked joy's conditions pretty well. So she's not sure. She's not sure if it's joy, but it's like joy. And since joy is hard to describe, she's going as close as she can get to it. It included, in minor form, the great struggle that tends to precede joy, meaning come before, and the feeling, once one is in joy, that the experiencing subject has somehow entered the emotion and disappeared. I have pleasure. It's a feeling I want to experience and own. A beach holiday is a pleasure. A new dress is a pleasure. But on that dance floor, I was joy, or some small piece of joy, with all those other hundreds of people who were also a part of joy. That, I think, is a more important paragraph than all of the examples she's been going through, because you're going to need to fill in with your own examples and probably not really use hers or even quote. You're probably not going to quote her examples, but that paragraph might be worth quoting, or a sentence in there. But that's the point I was making earlier, that people, you have pleasure. It's like something, I have a lot of pleasure of doing this. I get a lot of pleasure out of that. But joy, you lose yourself. And that's why she says, I was joy. You enter the emotion and disappear, she says. That joy is so intense that you lose yourself. Again, think about people who experience drugs and lose themselves, like their personality's gone, or they convert to a religion and Jesus fills them and they are gone. They don't have the same personality traits they had before. They're just like really into this. Or, you're at a dance club and you're doing drugs and it's like you're just so feeling it. You don't even have a personality. You're just a body feeling joy on a dance floor. You don't have a personality anymore. You're just in the crowd. Okay, cool. This is going good. Let's see what else we got here. The Smileys in their way, and Smiley again is that nice guy who likes to do drugs with you. The Smileys in their way must have recognized the vital difference. It would explain their great concern with other people's experience. For as long as that high lasted, they seemed to pass beyond their own egos, meaning you're like not even a person anymore. You're like out there in the universe. And it might really have been joy if the next morning didn't always arrive. I don't just mean the deathly headache, the blurred vision, and the stomach cramps. These are like the side effects of drugs and drinking. What really destroyed the possibility that this had been joy was the replaying in one's mind of the actual events of the previous night and the brutal recognition that every moment of sublimity, I mean, sublime is like a really big, overwhelming feeling. It's very similar to joy, the way she's using it. Every conversation that had seemed to touch upon the meaning of life, every tune that had appeared a masterwork, had no substance whatsoever now, here in the harsh light of morning. The final indignity came when you dragged yourself finally from your bed and went into the living room. There, on your mother's sofa, in the place of that jester spirit animal savior person you thought you'd met last night, someone had left a crushingly boring skinny pillhead already smoking a joint who wanted to borrow 20 quid for a cab. That's money for a taxi cab. So she feels like this drug experience might have been joy. She's trying to use it to describe what joy might be like, because it's such a hard thing to describe because it involves you losing track of yourself. And she says the reason she thinks it maybe isn't joy is because of the way that, like, you don't remember it happily. It's amazing when it's happening, but the next day when you remember it, it seems you're like, oh, this song was the most amazing thing in the world last night in the club, surrounded by sweaty dancing people when I was high on drugs. But if you listen to that same song the next day, it's like, oh, that song's okay, right? Like it kind of disappears. Or you're having this amazing experience with this guy, and he just wants to hang out and do drugs and be happy. But then the next morning, it's just like, oh, that guy's sleeping on the couch. He's just a fucking weirdo. The magic is gone. So she's like, maybe that means it wasn't really joy. Um, she's trying to figure out what joy is and trying to describe it, and she's not quite sure exactly what it is. Okay, cool. This is going really smoothly. It wasn't all a waste of time, though. At the neural level, meaning in the brain, such experiences gave you a clue about what joy, not under the influence of drugs, would feel like. Helped you learn to recognize joy when it arrived. I suppose a neuroscientist could explain in very clear terms why the moment after giving birth can feel ecstatic. Again, notice ecstatic, ecstasy outside of your own body. That's literally what it means. I suppose a neuroscientist could explain in very clear terms why the moment after giving birth can feel ecstatic, or swimming in a Welsh mountain lake with somebody dear to you. Perhaps the same synapses that ecstasy falsely twanged are twanged authentically by fresh water, certain epidurals, and oxycontin. She's saying, so this is a drug used when you give birth. That's like a painkiller. I think I'm not really good about drugs. Um, and if, while sitting high on a hill in the south of France, someone who has access to a phone comes dashing up to the slope to inform you that 2 years of tension, serious study, and academic anxiety have not been in vain, perhaps again these same synapses or whatever they are do their happy dance. So she quickly, and I think with not enough detail there, describes some experiences she's had. She had kind of amazing experience in a lake or on a hill in the south of France when someone gives her some good news. It sounds like maybe she got into college, or she won a grant or an award or a job or something, because she says she got the news that all of her hard academic work had not been in vain, had not been for nothing. So she describes that as a kind of joy, and she wonders, like, is the kind of joy that you feel when she has an intense experience in a lake? And I don't know, I don't know if she means swimming or like falling in love in a lake, or sex, or I don't know what she's describing there. Because she says swimming in a Welsh mountain lake with somebody dear to you. Like, I don't know, does that mean romance? Is that sex? I don't know what that is. But her point is that she's wondering whether that drug experience was like joy, and it sets off things in her brain, and she wonders maybe it's the same kind of thing that you get without drugs, like when you experience, being in love, or this ecstasy that comes right after your child is born, or getting this amazing life-changing news. um, cool. All right. I don't understand this. I have to say, I'm going to just complain about this for a hot second. She says she wants to know, such experiences give you, at the neural level, such experiences give you a clue about joy not under the influence would feel like. Helped you learn to recognize joy when it arrived. I suppose a neuroscientist could explain in very clear terms why the moment after giving birth can feel ecstatic, or swimming in a Welsh mountain lake with somebody dear to you. Perhaps the same synapses that ecstasy falsely twanged are twanged authentically by fresh water, certain epidurals, and oxycontin. I don't understand why ecstasy, which is a drug, twanged your brain to give you a falsely twangs your brain, but epidurals, which is also a drug, and oxycontin, which is also a drug, really do give you joy. I'm just really confused about it. It's a weird sentence. I'm sorry, I shouldn't stop to bitch about this, but I just feel like that's really confusing. So she's like, ecstasy falsely gives you a feeling of joy, but these other drugs really do? I don't know. Okay. I thought her whole point is that the drug experience isn't authentic. Anyway, I don't know. I feel like she messed that part up. And okay. So she says here, we certainly don't need to be neuroscientists to know that wild romantic crushes, especially if they are fraught with danger, do something ecstatic to our brains. Though, like the pills that share the name, horror and disappointment are usually not far behind. So this is a good point about that joy is so intense, but it's also very fleeting. It can go away fast. You can have an incredible experience in the club doing drugs and dancing to this incredible music and being caught up in the crowd, and you lose your sense of self dancing with everybody. But then the next day it's like, oh, I feel like shit. That was horrible. Why did I do any of that dumb stuff? And who is this weird guy sleeping on my couch? That you can feel that way about falling in love too. You can fall in love and then be like, oh my God, why did I wreck my life over this person who's terrible? Um, okay. And I really like that she does notice that, right, ecstasy is the name of the drug, but the feeling, that ecstasy is both the name of a drug and a feeling. And the feeling ecstasy seems like it means the same thing she means by joy. It's a kind of out of body experience. It's so intense that you're not even yourself anymore. And that's why you don't want pleasure, something you experience every day, but joy, ecstasy, is too intense to experience every day. When my wild crush came, we wandered around a museum for so long it closed without us noticing. Stuck in the ground, we climbed a high wall, and finding it higher on its other side, considered our options: broken ankles or a long night sleeping on a stone lion. In the end, a passerby helped us down, and things turned prosaic. That means everyday and normal. After a few months, fizzled out. So she had this incredible experience with this person, and she thought she was in love, but then a couple of months later, it was just gone. What had looked like love had just been teen spirit. That's a joke because "Smells Like Teen Spirit" is the name of the song that was playing in the club. And teenagers often have these intense emotional experiences. But what a wonderful thing to sit on a high wall, dizzy with joy, and think nothing of breaking your ankles. So anyway, she's trying to figure out joy. I'll pick it up in the next video, but I think this seemed longer than the other one, but it's actually faster because it's just these giant examples I don't feel like going over. Okay, cool. I'll pick it up in the next video.